The awakening storm. The emergency klaxons echoed through the crystalline halls of Federation Central, their haunting wail carrying a message that chilled the hearts of beings across 47 different worlds. Dr. Maya Chen walked calmly through the chaos, her steady footsteps a sharp contrast to the frantic scurrying of alien diplomats rushing toward the Grand Assembly Hall. Her dark eyes took in every detail, every panicked gesture, every whispered conversation in a dozen different languages. The Velthari were the first to notice her composure. Their insectoid forms clicked and chittered as she passed, their compound eyes reflecting confusion at the humans' apparent lack of concern. The towering Gorvani pressed themselves against the walls as she moved, their blue-scaled hides rippling with nervous energy. Even the ethereal luminary dimmed their natural glow when they saw her approaching, as if her calmness somehow dampened their ability to shine. Maya had served as Earth's primary ambassador to the Galactic Federation for 3 years, and in that time, she had earned a reputation as a quiet observer. While other species engaged in heated debates about trade routes and territorial disputes, the human representative would sit silently, taking notes in her mysterious Earth script. Many considered her species primitive, their technology outdated, their military insignificant. They were polite about it, of course, but Maya could see the condescension in their eyes. If only they knew what she really was. The Grand Assembly Hall stretched before her like a cathedral dedicated to the diversity of life itself. The dome ceiling showed real-time images of space around Federation Central, stars twinkling peacefully against the black void. 47 different seating arrangements accommodated the various physiologies of the member species, from the aquatic tanks of the Haide Rosoan delegation to the high-gravity platforms required by the rock-like Tirani. Council Prime Velinara stood at the central podium, her elegant form radiating authority despite the obvious tension in her movements. The Altarian leader's silver skin had taken on a darker hue, a sign of deep stress among her people. Her forearms gestured dramatically as she addressed the assembled delegates. The transmission was detected simultaneously by monitoring stations in 17 different sectors, Velnara announced, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's acoustic systems. The signal originated from beyond our galactic edge, from the void spaces between galaxies where no known civilization exists. Maya took her assigned seat in the human section, a modest area that reflected Earth's perceived importance in galactic affairs. She activated her recording device and prepared to take notes, just as she always did. Around her, the other delegates leaned forward anxiously, their various forms of breathing creating a symphony of concern. Admiral Kothrak of the Gorvani Defense Fleet stood to address the assembly. His massive frame dominated the speaker's platform, scales glinting under the hall's artificial lights. "The message has been translated by our best xenolinguists," he announced, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. It consists of a single phrase, repeated in a pattern that suggests both a warning and a threat. The hall fell silent as the Admiral activated the central display. Strange symbols appeared, shifting and morphing as the translation algorithms worked. Finally, words appeared in the common galactic script, burning themselves into the minds of every being present. The harvest begins. Admiral Kothrak restored order with a thunderous roar. The Federation Defense Force consists of 12,000 ships across all member fleets. Our combined military might represents the greatest accumulation of firepower in galactic history. We have faced pirate fleets, rogue AI networks, and interdimensional raiders. We can handle this threat. But even as he spoke, the confidence in his voice seemed forced. The beings approaching from the void were clearly operating on a scale that dwarfed anything the Federation had encountered. Dr. Zethmore activated another display, showing historical records. Every civilization that has faced these entities has been completely eliminated. The Vortani Empire, the Crystal Hegemony, the First Republic, all vanished without a trace. Their worlds remain, but stripped of all advanced technology and most life forms. "Then what do you suggest we do?" demanded Representative Kultar of the Mining Consortium. "Surrender without a fight?" "We prepare our defenses," Velnara declared. "Every ship, every weapon, every defense platform in Federation space. We call up the reserves and prepare for the fight of our lives." Maya finally looked up from her notepad. For the first time since entering the hall, she spoke. "Council Prime, I request permission to contact my government immediately. Earth wishes to coordinate our response with the Federation's defense plans." Several delegates exchanged glances. The human military consisted of perhaps 50 ships, most of them outdated by galactic standards. Their contribution to any defense would be minimal at best. "Of course, Ambassador Chen," Velnara replied politely. "Every member world's participation is welcome, however modest." Maya stood and bowed slightly, a gesture of respect she had learned during her diplomatic training. "Thank you, Council Prime. I believe my government will be very interested in this development." As she walked toward the exit, none of the other delegates paid much attention to her departure. They were too busy arguing about evacuation plans and defense strategies. They didn't notice the small smile that crossed her lips as she left the hall. In the privacy of the Human Embassy's communications center, Maya activated the quantum entanglement transmitter that connected her directly to Earth. The device was supposedly a simple diplomatic communication array, but like many things about humanity's presence in the galaxy, it was not what it appeared to be. "Control, this is Ambassador Chen," she said quietly into the transmitter. "The event we have been monitoring for 50 years has begun. Repeat, the Harvest Protocol is active." The response came immediately from a voice she recognized but hadn't heard in 3 years. "Confirmed, Maya. We've been tracking the emergence for the past 6 hours. Are you in position?" "Affirmative. The Federation is mobilizing their conventional forces, but they have no idea what they're facing. Estimated 14 days until first contact with outer colonies." "Understood. Maintain your cover until Phase 2 activation. Admiral Kane sends her regards and reminds you that everything depends on the timing." Maya smiled again, this one carrying genuine warmth. Rebecca Kane had been her mentor, her friend, and the architect of humanity's greatest secret. "Tell the Admiral I won't let her down. The Watchers have waited long enough. Protocol Omega is authorized. The Silent Fleet awaits your signal." As Maya ended the transmission, she looked out through the embassy's windows at the bustling activity of Federation Central. Ships were launching in every direction, carrying messages to distant worlds and preparing for the greatest military mobilization in galactic history. The various species were doing exactly what they had always done when faced with a threat. They were preparing to meet it head-on with overwhelming force. It would not be enough. Maya had seen the classified reports, the analysis that, as Maya ended the transmission, she looked out through the embassy's windows at the bustling activity of Federation Central. Ships were launching in every direction, carrying messages to distant worlds and preparing for the greatest military mobilization in galactic history. The various species were doing exactly what they had always done when faced with a threat. They were preparing to meet it head-on with overwhelming force. It would not be enough. Maya had seen the classified reports, the analysis that had taken human scientists decades to complete. The entities approaching from the void had harvested dozens of civilizations over millions of years. They had faced every conventional military strategy the galaxy could produce. But they had never faced humanity. Deep in the heart of Earth's solar system, in hidden bases scattered throughout the asteroid belt and the outer planets, systems that had been dormant for decades began to power up. Ships that existed in no official records started their engines. Weapons that broke the known laws of physics armed themselves for the first time. And in command centers buried beneath Earth's surface, men and women who had spent their entire careers preparing for this moment finally received the orders they had been waiting for. The harvest was beginning, but this time the harvesters would discover that one species had been watching them, learning from them, and preparing for them since the day humans first reached for the stars. The Silent Watchers were about to break their silence. As Maya ended the transmission, she looked out through the embassy's windows at the bustling activity of Federation Central. Ships were launching in every direction, carrying messages to distant worlds and preparing for the greatest military mobilization in galactic history. The various species were doing exactly what they had always done when faced with a threat. They were preparing to meet it head-on, with overwhelming force. It would not be enough. Maya had seen the classified reports, the analysis that had taken human scientists decades to complete. The entities approaching from the void had harvested dozens of civilizations over millions of years. They had faced every conventional military strategy the galaxy could produce. But they had never faced humanity. Deep in the heart of Earth's solar system, in hidden bases scattered throughout the asteroid belt and the outer planets, systems that had been dormant for decades began to power up. Ships that existed in no official records started their engines. Weapons that broke the known laws of physics armed themselves for the first time. And in command centers buried beneath Earth's surface, men and women who had spent their entire careers preparing for this moment finally received the orders they had been waiting for. The harvest was beginning, but this time, the harvesters would discover that one species had been watching them, learning from them, and preparing for them since the day humans first reached for the stars. The Silent Watchers were about to break their silence. The Silent Watchers revealed. The first Federation colony to face the harvest was New Altair, a thriving world of 12 million beings representing 17 different species. The defensive fleet that met the approaching dark ships was impressive by any galactic standard. 200 vessels ranging from fast attack craft to massive dreadnoughts, their combined firepower capable of cracking a moon. It lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Maya watched the battle recordings in her embassy office, her expression calm despite the horror unfolding on the screens. The dark ships had done something no Federation strategist had anticipated. Instead of engaging in conventional combat, they had simply absorbed the attacking fleet's energy weapons and converted the power into some kind of neural disruption field. Every organic being within a light second of the dark ships had simply stopped thinking. Ships drifted helplessly as their crews fell into comas. Planetary defense batteries went silent as their operators collapsed at their posts. Within hours, massive harvesting machines had descended to the planet's surface, beginning the systematic collection of all advanced technology and biological matter. The emergency session of the Grand Assembly was chaos incarnate. Admiral Kothrak's scales had turned a deep purple, indicating extreme stress among his people. Several luminary delegates had stopped glowing entirely, their forms barely visible in the hall's artificial light. "Conventional weapons are useless," the Admiral announced, his voice hollow with defeat. "Every ship that gets within range simply stops responding to commands. The crews survive, but they become empty, vegetative." Council Prime Velnara's silver skin had darkened to an ominous gray. 3 more colonies have gone silent since New Altair. The pattern is always the same. The dark ships arrive, neutralize all opposition without firing a shot, then begin harvesting everything of value. Dr. Zethmore stood at his analytical station, surrounded by holographic displays showing the enemy's advance. "I've been studying the historical records more carefully. Every previous civilization that faced these entities tried the same approach: direct military confrontation. None succeeded. The harvesters have evolved beyond conventional warfare." "Then what do we do?" demanded Representative Thylane, her photosynthetic skin flickering with anxiety. "Do we simply evacuate the entire galaxy?" "Even that wouldn't work," Dr. Zethmore replied grimly. "The historical records suggest they hunt down fleeing populations systematically. Running only delays the inevitable." Maya had remained silent throughout the debate, but now she stood slowly. Every eye in the assembly turned to her, most showing barely concealed impatience. What could the representative of a primitive world possibly contribute to this crisis? Council Prime, Maya said formally. I have received new instructions from my government. Earth requests permission to coordinate our defense efforts with the Federation fleet. Admiral Kothrak's expression would have been amusing under different circumstances. Ambassador Chen, I appreciate your world's desire to help, but this situation requires resources far beyond what Earth can provide. Perhaps your ships could assist with evacuation efforts. Maya smiled, and something in that expression made several nearby delegates shift uncomfortably. Admiral, I think you may be underestimating my people's capabilities. We would like to propose a different approach to this problem. Before anyone could respond, the assembly hall's emergency alarms began sounding again. The dome ceiling shifted to show the outer monitoring stations, where something impossible was happening. Ships were appearing out of empty space, not arriving through jump points or emerging from hyperspace, but literally materializing where nothing had existed moments before. Sleek, angular vessels that seemed to bend light around their hulls, making them difficult to focus on, even when visible. Unknown vessels are appearing throughout Federation space, announced the station AI. Current count exceeds 800 ships of various configurations. They are not responding to standard identification requests. The assembled delegates erupted in confusion and fear. Were these more harvesters? Some new threat arriving to take advantage of the crisis? Maya's smile widened. Those would be mine. The silence that followed was absolute. Admiral Kothrak was the first to recover his voice. Ambassador, what do you mean yours? I mean they belong to humanity, Maya replied calmly. Specifically to the Earth Defense Force's silent fleet. We've been preparing for this moment for 50 years. Council Prime Velinara stared at the human ambassador as if seeing her for the first time. Ambassador Chen, according to our records, Earth's entire military consists of approximately 50 ships. You cannot possibly have 800 vessels. According to your records, yes, Maya agreed. But you see, Council Prime, humanity has been aware of the harvest cycle since before we made first contact with the Federation. We've spent the last 5 decades preparing for this exact scenario. The central display activated, showing a new face that none of the delegates recognized. The woman appeared to be human, with short gray hair and eyes that held decades of military experience. She wore a uniform that bore no resemblance to any known Earth military insignia. This is Admiral Rebecca Kane of the Earth Defense Force, the woman announced. I am assuming tactical command of all operations against the harvest entities. Admiral Kothrak's scales bristled with indignation. By what authority do you claim command over Federation forces? By the authority of results, Admiral, Rebecca replied smoothly. Your conventional approach has failed completely. My forces have been specifically designed to combat these entities. We know their capabilities, their tactics, and most importantly, their weaknesses. Dr. Zethmore leaned forward, his crystalline form catching the light. You speak as if you've fought them before. We have, Maya answered for the Admiral. Not directly, but we've been studying them for generations. The harvest doesn't just take technology and biological matter, Admiral. It also leaves traces, signatures that can be analyzed by those who know what to look for. The display shifted to show detailed schematics of the dark ships, more complete than anything the Federation had managed to compile. The harvesters operate on several assumptions, Admiral Kane continued. First, that their prey will use energy-based weapons that can be absorbed and redirected. Second, that organic mines are their primary target. Third, that their enemies will attempt direct confrontation. And humanity has developed countermeasures for these assumptions? Velinara asked, though her tone suggested she was beginning to understand that the humans had been playing a much deeper game than anyone realized. We've developed entirely new approaches, Maya replied. Our ships don't use energy weapons that can be absorbed. Our crews aren't entirely organic in the way the harvesters expect, and we have no intention of meeting them in direct battle. The tactical display updated, showing the positions of human ships throughout Federation space. Instead of forming up for conventional fleet actions, they were dispersed in small groups, moving in patterns that seemed random, but clearly followed some larger strategic piece. Lan, Captain Torres, please demonstrate our capabilities for our allies, Admiral Kane commanded. The view shifted to show one of the human ships approaching a dark harvester near the Vega system. The Federation observers watched in amazement as the human vessel seemed to fade from existence, becoming nearly invisible even to the most advanced sensors. But it was what happened next that stunned them. Instead of attacking the harvester directly, the human ship released thousands of small objects that spread out in all directions. At first glance, they appeared to be simple debris, but as they made contact with the dark ship's hull, their true nature became apparent. Nanoscale disassemblers, Maya explained as they watched the harvester's armor begin to dissolve. They don't use energy the creatures can absorb. They simply take apart the target at the molecular level. The dark ship tried to retreat, but it was too late. The disassemblers had reached critical systems, and the massive vessel began to break apart from within. Most remarkably, the neural disruption field that had disabled Federation crews had no effect on the human ship. Our crews aren't entirely biological, Admiral Kane explained. They're enhanced with synthetic neural networks that are immune to the harvester's mental attacks. We learned long ago that fighting these entities requires thinking beyond conventional organic limitations. Admiral Kothrak was studying the tactical displays with growing amazement. How long have you been planning this? Since 2157, Maya replied. The year before we made first contact with the Federation, our deep space monitoring networks detected traces of the harvest cycle in ancient radio signals from dead civilizations. We realized that something was systematically eliminating advanced life in the galaxy. Dr. Zethmore activated his own analysis systems, comparing the human data with his historical records. This is extraordinary. You've identified patterns that our archaeologists missed completely. We had advantages you didn't, Maya admitted. Humanity developed in isolation, without contact with galactic civilization. We had to assume that space was hostile and that anything we encountered might be a threat. It made us paranoid, but it also made us careful. The tactical situation was changing rapidly. Across Federation space, human ships were engaging harvester vessels with devastating effect. The creatures that had seemed invincible against conventional forces were falling one by one to weapons and tactics they had never encountered. But there's more, Admiral Kane announced. The harvesters aren't just ships. They're part of a larger organism, a collective intelligence that spans multiple dimensions. Defeating the physical manifestations is only the first step. Maya walked to the central display, her diplomatic mask finally slipping away to reveal the strategic mind beneath. We've spent 50 years learning to think like the harvesters. They see biological life as a resource to be managed, cultivated, and periodically harvested. They don't understand concepts like sacrifice, cooperation, or fighting for something greater than survival. Council Prime Velnara was beginning to understand. You're saying they can't predict how unified species will respond to existential threats. Exactly, Maya confirmed. Every civilization they've harvested before fought alone, each species trying to save itself. But we're proposing something different. Full integration of all Federation forces under unified human command, using tactics and technologies the harvesters have never encountered. The debate that followed was intense but brief, with their conventional strategies proven useless and human forces demonstrating clear effectiveness. The Federation leadership had little choice but to accept Earth's proposal. As the various fleets began reorganizing under human tactical doctrine, Maya found herself alone with Council Prime Velnara in the observation deck overlooking the assembly hall. Why? Velnara asked quietly. Why did humanity hide its true capabilities for so long? Maya considered the question carefully. Because we learned something important during our early development. Sometimes the greatest advantage comes from being underestimated. We let the galaxy see us as primitive while we work to understand the real threats out there. And if the harvest had never come, would you have remained hidden forever? We hoped it would never be necessary, Maya replied honestly. But we always knew that eventually something would challenge not just humanity, but all life in the galaxy. We decided long ago that when that day came, we would be ready. Through the observation windows, they could see human ships moving in perfect formation with Federation vessels. Species that had never worked together before were coordinating their efforts under human strategic guidance. The Gorvani were providing heavy firepower, the Luminari were handling communication networks, and the Crystalline were analyzing harvester technology in real time. The harvesters made one crucial mistake, Maya continued. They assumed that advanced civilizations would always act according to the patterns they had observed before. They never considered that evolution might produce a species willing to sacrifice individual advantage for collective survival. Admiral Kane's voice came over the communications system. All fleets report ready status. Operation Silent Dawn is authorized. It's time to show these ancient parasites what happens when they threaten a united galaxy. As the combined fleet moved toward the final confrontation with the Harvest entity's primary vessels, Maya felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Humanity had waited in the shadows for 50 years, watching, learning, and preparing. Now, finally, the Silent Watchers were ready to prove that sometimes the best defense comes from those who understand that true strength lies not in individual power, but in the willingness to stand together against the darkness. The Harvest was about to learn what it meant to face a prey species that refused to be harvested.